Hi, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to XDC APAC Podcast. My name is Sonny Mohanty. I'm the head of ventures and ecosystem building at XDC Network. So, as part of the XDC Acceleration Program, we have another founder who made it to the top 8 as part of the Tenity XDC Acceleration Program. And we're going to discuss more about the project KERC. All right. So, here we have John,
Yes.
the founder of KERC, and he is building something around healthcare. He's putting healthcare on chain on the XDC network because one of the mandate, as you know, putting real world assets on the XDC mainnet. So today, guys, fasten your seatbelt as we speak with the founder of KERC, John, to know more about his project and his future roadmap. So welcome to XDC Acceleration Program. This podcast is part of the Acceleration Program so that our ecosystem knows a little bit more about you and your project. We'll start with your introduction about yourself, and then we will discuss about your project.
Sure. Pleasure to be here, everyone. Super glad to be part of this program as well. It's been really helpful with the master classes and everything. Just diving back into my experiences. I've been in corporate finance for the past couple of years, but mostly I've been more in medical and health technologies. Been in the whole medical tourism segment for the past decade plus, and that sort of drove us into the segment of basically seeing the inoperability of how healthcare works cross-border systems. You get the pain points of universal healthcare from the Canadian and the UK side, and even in Malaysia and Singapore, which is a hybrid. And then you got the whole very messy system of the US, which is essentially an arm and a leg for basically a pinky in that sense. That's what they used to say. So that sort of pushes in a direction like us as my fellow founders, me together to say, look, we know the problems, we see the problems, but a lot of people in this day and age, they don't want to change it because doctors essentially just want to help you and make you feel better at the end of the day.
Right.
They don't want to change the system they are really on, and that's the last thing on their mind right now. So we need people to push that forward, and we see like, hey, look, we love the blockchain technology, we love the real world asset space, and that's where we're heading towards now.
Obviously, we don't have a mass adoption in terms of healthcare, getting adopted into the blockchain and ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you gave us a broad overview of what you're trying to achieve, but specific to KERC. So what problem are you solving?
So where we saw the first problem in healthcare and all over the world is actually the misdiagnosis issue. One of the biggest reasons why people die unnecessary in healthcare is actually misdiagnosis. And this is normally underreported very heavily because it's a stain on the hospital's marks, it's a stain on the specialist marks, and this is normally reported under another cause at the end of the day. But if you drive down to the root cause, it's actually because the doctor just doesn't have enough information. So imagine if you have a car and you don't have enough tools to diagnose the issue with the car, then you wouldn't be able to fix what's actually wrong with the car. And you go about different ways and testing it, and you basically spend more money either testing or you spend more money sort of wasting time to figure out where you're going to get to the problem. So what we are trying to solve at first point is to essentially allow health data to be resurfaced in a healthy manner, because right now, if you're talking about past genetic history or your family history in terms of your health tests and stuff like that, you essentially don't have access to that because even HIPAA mandate is only 7 years. So imagine if you're like 30 and you did a test when you're 20 plus, like that test is gone essentially. The healthcare provider doesn't have a mandate to keep it, and it costs them money to keep it. So if you forget your email, your password, that's it, that's gone. So with blockchain technology, we are able to essentially solve this problem because we are able to reduce the size in terms of storage. We're able to decentralize the information, so you no longer have to worry about going across different providers, insurance providers, different hospital facilities, and you can't transfer your data across because their systems just don't sync. So this is the bridge that essentially the first step of the bridge we're trying to solve, and it's one of the biggest pain points we see in healthcare.
Okay, I understand you're trying to bridge between the hospitals or where your medical records are being stored. But if you take the blockchain component out, there is still that problem that exists today, right? So in my view, how you're solving that and how different you are, because as I say, a blockchain is nothing new, and there are many other projects who would have tried their hands on putting healthcare records onto the blockchain.
Yeah.
But we don't see mass adoption yet.
Yeah.
So I would like to know how different you are from other projects.
Yes, definitely. So, as you said, we are not the first person to try to adopt this whole technology onto the blockchain segment. Obviously, first and foremost, the reason why blockchain is a good bridge between this rather than whatever's in Web 2 is because everything in Web 2 is essentially within their own silo and their own ecosystems, and they don't speak to each other already. So if, let's just say, a hospital is using a Google Drive system to store their health data, they're not going to cross-border to someone who's using the AWS system or someone who's in China who's using the Tencent system. This server just doesn't cross, and when you want to transfer it across, they might not even let you, or they will just send you a PDF file and then that's it. If you lose it, that's it. So where blockchain comes in, obviously, is that cross-border solution, because now you can plug into AWS, Google, and Tencent at the same time using a chain. And where we differ from other players is that other players are essentially trying to create a solution and get everyone to adopt into that silo, which is the same problem we saw with basically creating an AWS and forcing everyone to use that again. While what we are trying to do is create an API system where we can call data from the current systems. So we will essentially be a bridge between everyone, and we are essentially trying to host everyone's data on a secondary market, whereby we can now decentralize it on the chain itself, and then it's easier in terms of adoption. So when we give this for free to the user, the end user, it becomes more adoptable and it becomes more, I would say, easy accessible. Because now when you have it at your fingertips for free, it's easier than me saying, hey, look, I have this technology. You have to pay $5 to use it a month.
So when you say end user, are you talking about the users who are using the medical services, or you're talking about the clinics?
I'm talking about the everyday guy, me and you, when we go to a clinic and when we do like a screening or a test and stuff like that. That's where we want our health records to be, essentially at our fingertips, rather than when we have to recall and go back to the hospital. It's like, hey, where's my records for like 2 years ago?
So you mean, let me just put it simply in English. So if I were to go to two different clinics who do not talk to each other, and if they partner with KERC, and I should be able to have one single app where I can see all my health records, irrespective of which clinic I'd been to, and if the clinics don't talk to each other. Am I correct? Or
correct. So the best part about this is that a lot of people don't realize that the people who are actually the gateway is not only the clinics, it's actually the CMS systems, the clinic management systems, because they are the one who essentially are managing the patient data and your receipts and stuff like that. So when we are working on our system, our plugins into the API for those providers. And there are not many providers actually in the world because of that, because these guys are normally built by the scanning companies. So the scanning companies are like your Siemens, your Samsung. Basically, they create the X-ray scans, your CT scans, the machine that basically runs your bloods. So they essentially charge the clinics and the hospitals to use their CMS system to transfer their data into their system. So they're actually double billing you, because that's the only way they can recoup the cost for the scanners. Because if they sold it to the clinics at cost price, it'd be too much. So what they do is they charge you a subscription model.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, the CMS system is common across all the clinics. That's where you come in, right? Got it. Interesting. I mean, obviously, as a end user, like of a hospital or a clinic, I wouldn't know anything. All I'm concerned about is my health data, right?
Yeah.
And so, good to know about all this stuff. Okay, interesting. Okay, we have. I know, as you know, and we know that this market, this space is flooded with so many chains, so many protocols, right? So what made you to decide to choose XDC chain, XDC network, and build on XDC network?
Great question. Because when we were looking around, we were actually exploring on a few chains to sort of solve that problem, because we always knew we needed to be like a secondary layer to any chain because of HIPAA compliancy. We need to ensure that our ecosystem is kept within a silo that we can control at any given moment when we submit our systems to different countries, because that's the bare minimum entry. So where we saw different chains and their interoperability issue, we saw XDC is a very good option because of where XDC is heading towards. The securitization and the real world asset focus, where the near gasless system was a big selling point first, because when we were exploring on, for example, Arbitrum or Avalanche, the gas system starts getting very high. We also explored on a few private chains as well, who were basically moving to this whole encryption service. The fees were going to be exorbitant, because when a user in a hostel wants to pull that data, it's going to cost them so much, and someone has to absorb that cost. So with this near gasless system that XDC has, that clicked, and okay, we like to work with XDC. We like where the direction is heading, and I think real world adoption is definitely a direction to go, because I think everyone's sort of a bit wary after the whole crypto downtime. We want real things with real revenue at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. To add on to that, I mean, thanks for sharing those points, like why did you choose XDC Network? I think you are setting a stone, obviously, creating that, how to put it, you're the first mover in that space of healthcare as a use case that is coming onto XDC Network. As far as I remember, we do not have a healthcare product that you are building on XDC Network that is already existent on the network. So my question to you is, how do you see, for instance, obviously, you've secured a funding before, and we are also going to be investing in your project. You're also looking to raise funds from other external investors. How is that going to impact the ecosystem once your project takes off on XDC Network, and obviously you start to scale, grow, make partnerships? How is that going to impact the wider ecosystem?
What we see as adoption is always going to be a use case before institution starts basically coming in, because there's two ways you sort of force institution to essentially adopt a new technology. It's either they buy you out for whatever cheap reason or whatever that benefits them, and then essentially they force the mass adoption. Or you become such a force that people use, that the point the institution cannot ignore you anymore, and they're forced to work with you. So case by case is how, for example, Uber forced the taxi industry into a ride-sharing system, for example. So in that sense, when we start giving users an adoption process of giving you the wallet for free on a D app, eventually where you can just start transferring, if the hospital requests for your medical records for someone else, okay, sure, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And when that happens and the hospital starts seeing that, in a sense, we sort of start becoming a force to be reckoned with. And also ministries of health are sort of start forcing to be more, I would say, receptive towards us. So we've already submitted our white paper to the Ministry of Health, and obviously the moment that sort of kicks off, it won't take very long for us to start integrating, because we've already secured some partnerships with some of the CMS and HMS systems, but their issue is always because they are 100% compliant, and they want us to make sure that we are compliant. So I think that's always going to be the issue with legislation. It's going to always fall behind what technology can do. So what I always say is, you need to let the rabbit run while the tortoise will slowly catch up, and eventually they'll reach at the same time.
Good that you brought up this points about working closely with Ministry of Health. These are highly regulated bodies governing the entire health care system in Malaysia, and I'm sure every country have their own regulatory bodies, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easy, right? Yeah. Especially if you are a founder, a first-time entrepreneur. I'm saying, just out of my experience, you're trying to not sell an existing SaaS product, but you're selling blockchain. I mean, not selling, I would say, not the right use of word, but you are trying to tell them the benefits that blockchain can bring to their systems. There must be a lot of challenges, right? Because A, they don't understand what is blockchain, and B, there's a lot of negative sentiments around the entire blockchain crypto space, as you rightly pointed out, right?
Yeah.
How easier, or it's going to be very challenging, but how did you manage to crack this?
We were lucky, actually, very lucky, because we worked very closely with the Ministry of Health during the pandemic era, in a sense. So our company was one of the few companies who essentially was doing the COVID testing and vaccination with the Malaysian government.
Oh, okay.
So we were basically running their mass vaccination centers, and essentially we were using a lot of those data points to help, I would say, pinpoint where are the hot zones for COVID during that time. And we sort of saw that system where it helped them, and they also were very interested in working with us. So because of that sort of greased the relationship a little bit to ease them into saying, hey, look, technology can be adopted and can be used. And I think especially when that season where most of the global Ministry of Health were sort of forced to use some form of app to showcase that you weren't COVID positive, they were open to the door of, hey, look, putting information on an app is okay.
Yeah.
And now it's more about, okay, now how do we regulate this new field now?
Yeah.
So the challenge now would be more of getting them to, well, like you said, it's educating them in terms of like, okay, how safe is it? Or what is the implications if we do something wrong? But I think the good thing is that definitely Malaysia, Singapore, in this region are quite crypto friendly. We're not against it, but we still, the government still wants to sort of like understand it a bit more.
Yeah.
So we're in a good space. That's why we sort of chose this region to start with, comparative to other regions that are very straight no, or they want you to get so many other licenses before you even start.
Obviously, you're focusing on Malaysia to start with, right? I would say hurdle to pass, like after Malaysia, probably you're going to look at Southeast Asia as a larger landscape.
Yeah.
How do you see this going mainstream at all? Because obviously you have your POCs and built within your country, Malaysia, right? Obviously that's where you obviously housed and you're starting the project there. But when you talk about adoption, you talk about a larger scale adoption, right? Where every hospital, like if you go to, for instance, you're traveling overseas, how can they see your medical records, right?
Yeah.
So when will that happen, and how KERC is positioned to achieve this?
One great thing about Malaysia as well, I feel to point out, a lot of people don't know, is our healthcare system is actually quite centralized in a sense. The Malaysian investment fund, Khazanah, actually invested very heavily into healthcare. So if you look into like IHH Berhad, basically a listed company, they're one of the largest hospital owners in the entire world. So like the Parkway chain, the Glen Eagles chain, so they're all owned by a Malaysian listed company. So in that sense, when you start adopting into these big corporate hospitals and their ecosystems, number one, it just goes cross-border way easier. Number two, the good thing also is, once again, the HMS and CMS systems are also cross-borders.
Yeah.
So the moment you start adopting with one guy, it's very easy to go to the next country and start knocking on the door. Hey, look, what do you need me to do to enable the same thing that you have in across other country here? So most likely they'll tell you, okay, maybe you need to get my country's Ministry of Health's approval, or maybe some legislative approval, then we can go from there. So that's why we targeted the HMS and CMS systems rather than targeting the users as a start at the end of the day, or the institution, because we find we essentially targeted where the gatekeepers are, and we decided to focus on them. And the moment we do this, I think every door will start opening along the way.
Yeah, very rightly said, the gatekeepers, the HMS and CMS, right?
Yeah.
So what's next, like for KERC, like in the next short term, medium term, and long term view of what's in for us?
Obviously, building on XDC is definitely one big thing that we're moving towards right now. After doing a lot of the back-end migration, we are starting to move whatever we have also in terms of our systems to upload medical records into the chain also from our current system into XDC. But we decided to hold off on that first until there's an upgrade coming on XDC.
Right, yeah.
So we decided to let's wait for that first before we upload, and then something goes wrong again. So we're definitely talking with Satish very closely on that segment. And that would essentially start snowballing us into having more test frameworks. But what's going to happen within the next few years, what we see ourselves doing is essentially start getting legislative approval, then starting the main testing phase for basically users, where we will introduce our app to the end users to say, hey, look, now you can just download this app. You essentially, every app will be a user with their wallet, and all your health information is in there, and we can start utilizing this as a framework to start pushing the narrative along the way. So obviously the fundraising journey will help us a lot, even though we are sustainable now. But obviously there are a few more things in the pipeline that we will review along the way, because there's so much use cases for technology and healthcare as a whole.
So much information, right? I don't want our listeners to probably not have this information gone away somewhere. They just they would like to connect with you, right? For our listeners. So how can they reach out to you or connect with you and probably an opportunity for collaboration with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. In the sense, you can find me. I'm pretty sure on XDC sites. Eventually, our project will be somewhere there. And definitely you can find me on Discord. And my phone number is also on LinkedIn. So you can just find me, John Lim. I'm there, and reach out, and we can talk further.
Okay, perfect. That was simple. This is founder of KERC. John, it was amazing talking to you and talking to you about KERC as well.
Yeah.
Your partnership with XDC and your future roadmap.
Yeah.
We are really excited to see you grow and get all those licenses sorted.
Yes.
So, and launch your core on XDC mainnet, and we expose you to our ecosystem as well and investors as well for further growth.
Yeah.
You're
a great host as well, Sonny.
Yeah. Thank you. And you've been also very good in terms of delivering all the milestones way before time, I must say. Oh, I know it's a piece of hard work, but hey, finally the demo day. How was the demo day, by the way? How was your experience? And
it was definitely good, nerve-wracking. Thanks to Tenity and I guess all the help from everyone. To squeeze everything down to 3 minutes is always hard. At the end of the day, when you have so much infrastructure and things to explain, but yeah, it's been a challenge. But yeah, I think it helps us a lot if it's going to prepare us for more of the main stage and more of the people that we're going to speak to.
Right. Great. Thank you, John. To all our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. I would like to share the link for the acceleration program. We are running another acceleration program with T-Hub, which is coming soon, launching this month. So stay tuned. And if you're early stage project, MVP ready, and building on the real world asset space, please feel free to apply for this program. And I have a surprise for you as well. So we are coming up with another podcast with another founder who's built on XDC Network. And stay tuned for that. And it's coming up soon. And keep watching. Have a great day. And I'll see you later.